this is being a slave in devotion, not someone who is beaten or whipped into submission. This is actually an honorific title that is given to the prophets and messengers. For example, the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, he's called the Abdullahi wa Rasuluh, slave of God and his messenger. We also refer to Jesus, peace upon him, and this is where you have a major disconnect between Islam and Christianity. We refer to Jesus, peace upon him, also as Abdullah wa Rasuluh, the slave of Allah and his messenger. Moses, peace upon him, slave of Allah and his messenger. So the idea of being devoted to the one truth and the supreme beauty and divine and ultimate, then that gives that person a sense of dignity in this world without arrogance or vanity or pride. And then, of course, by surrendering to the one God in this world, then our hope is that we have the everlasting bliss, not just something which does occur at the spiritual level, but what happens as well after death. So this is in a nutshell the universal Islam, which is beyond any time or space. Meaning, when I said that, I teach at Renaissance Academy, so when I say that beyond time and space, I say, what are you talking about? Is this some sort of Star Trek class or something? So beyond time and space, meaning it's not a particular geography. Islam is not defined by Arabia. And those of you who've studied Islamic history understand that very well. And it's not defined by, 14 centuries ago. This is something that can happen anytime in any place, that a person realizes, I have one God and He has created me. Whether I know exactly how to or not, I am surrendered to Him. And I will serve Him, right? So this is the idea of Islam being universal. We're going to get in the next slide to what is specific, which is what the rest of the class will be about. But I wanted to start with this underlying matrix for the whole religion. A Muslim then is one who surrenders to Islam. So we would say Islam is to Muslim as Christianity is to Christian. Some of you guys still remember SAT or GRE. I don't know, they still do that or not. So, so when we say that a Muslim is one who surrenders to the one God, right? So Islam is the act of surrender. Some people actually say it's a whole process of surrender that is taking place day in, day out. There's an author, actually, he's a mathematician. He wrote a book, he called it Struggling to Surrender. So he connected the idea of jihad. The meaning of jihad is to struggle. And so he's saying struggling to surrender, meaning that every day in our life, we are trying as Muslims to make sure that what we are doing is consistent with the divine mandate, which is to live a noble life, a good life. It's very simple, very common across religions. Respect your parents, respect your neighbors, stand for the truth, in addition to only worshiping the one God. So one who surrenders to the one God, we call him a Muslim. And interestingly, in the Quran, all of the previous prophets and messengers are described as Muslim. So again, this may throw you off a little bit. You might say, I thought Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as we will see, whenever we mention the name of a prophet, we say peace be upon him at least once. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, will say, he's in 570 AD. He's 570 years after Jesus, peace be upon him. And he is the one who invented Islam and Muslim. So how can it be that people before him, prophets and messengers, were called Muslim? And it's going back to this definition. So when Abraham, peace be upon him, is described as Hanifan Muslima, which means a pure surrenderer. That's what it literally means, a pure Muslim. When he's referred to as that, means that he was not surrendering to the idols which his people were immersed in and the polytheism. He was just pure for the one God, surrendered to him. When Moses is described the same way, when the Israelite prophets are described the same way, when Jesus, peace upon him, is described the same way, when Prophet Muhammad himself is described the same way, when we who follow the Prophet Muhammad also take that same name. And actually, this is the only official title that is given in the Quran besides believers, is Muslim for this community. So all other labels and titles are things that came afterwards. Whether it's things like Shia or Sunni Shia or Sunni or this kind of thing or that kind of thing. The label that God has given us is Muslim, the one who surrenders to the one God. Those other aspects, they will probably come up in some of the other classes. Nature itself, we see it as Muslim. So when I'm in the right mood and I see the glistening sunshine of some beads of, I'm not a poet, some beads of dew on a grass. I need to work on that one for next time, right? And you see that reflection and you see that light. Actually, if I'm in the right spiritual state, I actually feel a kinship to that blade of grass. You might say, what do you mean? How do you feel a kinship? I'm not just talking about biology, but I'm talking about the idea that this blade of grass is also surrendered to the one God, is also Muslim. And I am Muslim. The blade of grass had no volition in it. However, I as a human being that God dignified with a soul and spirit, that I am choosing to surrender as well. And this includes everything in creation. The earth itself on which we are standing, our own cells, our own organs, we believe that they are already surrendered in the system that God has aligned them. In fact, all of universe and all of the galaxies, etc. So I think this will be a good stopping point. We're just going to go and pray for those Muslims in the audience who want to go and pray and then come back. And then we'll be restarting. If the food does come in, I think it's coming in, please feel free to serve yourselves. And we look forward to continuing. Especially, I know some of you may have some questions. I said a whole lot in just one slide. So please remember your questions, and when we come back, I'll be more than happy to address them. Thank you all, and see you shortly. All right, so we're back, and good evening. This is Maryam, by the way. Say Assalamu alaikum, Maryam. Yes. We're just running a little bit behind, a little bit on the food, but we'll be starting that very shortly. As soon as I see the signal from them that they're ready, we'll go ahead and get started with that, and probably continue with the lecture while you are eating. So I know I'm trying to overcome that habit of watching TV and eating at the same time, but we'll let you do that for today. So, inshallah, we're ready to start, you think? Basad? Ready? Okay, inshallah. So let me just go ahead and try to get some more in until we are ready, which is the question. So we left off on Islam and Muslims in a universal sense, after again praising God, peace and blessings be upon His prophets and messengers. Do we have any questions about Islam and Muslim in terms of in a universal level? Yes. Okay, so the question is on the origins of the word Islam and the origins of the word Muslim. So again, Islam, semantically or linguistically, means just to surrender or to submit. And peace is another word. It's called salam. Even salam is not exactly peace. Silm is peace. So they sound kind of close, and because there is that connection we talked about before. And then we talked about the linguistic origin. In terms of when was that first used and heard, as far as I know, it's in the Quranic language. So I have not studied enough of the Bible in its original language to find a matching word. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, but I haven't done that kind of research. But it's definitely used in the Quran. And in that first community until today. Whereas some of the other titles and labels were used differently. So for example, in the West, in the